All right, well, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining me this morning. I'm your host, Lucas Drege. I'm a solution specialist here at AgilePoint, and thank you for joining me today. So for this session, this is really meant to be a 100-level introduction to the AgilePoint platform. For those of you who have been working with AgilePoint for some time and perhaps on a prior version, you will see some of the new functionality in AgilePoint version 7 software update 1. And you're probably noticing that your lines have been muted today, right? Now, that being said, we do want to encourage interaction. And the best way to do that is to use the questions panel in your Zoom webinar. And if it's not something that we get a chance to address throughout the course of the webinar today, we do have about 15 minutes or so to address questions as a group. For today's presentation, there's going to be two major components, right? Up front, what I'll do is I'll go through a few quick slides just to set some context and introduce a few of the concepts that you'll see throughout the remainder of the presentation. And then for the second half, I have a few demos that I'd like to run us through. All right, so with the housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I know that on the line, there's a number of you who are speaking with AgilePoint for the first time, right? And it makes sense to just briefly give some context about the company and where we've come from. Right? AgilePoint was really one of the pioneers in this low-code or rapid application development space, right? Having been founded in 2003. Right? Over the last 15 years, roughly 1,500 customers have entrusted us with their most mission-critical application needs. Right, and as you're seeing on screen, right, the challenges that we solve in the business really span just about every major industry sector and vertical. Now, beyond that, AgilePoint does have a global presence, right? It was very important for us, given the nature of our work, to have resources in every major corner of the globe, right, to speak the local languages and to provide support in the local time zones. Right, so if you're chatting with us for the first time today, we'd be happy to connect you with the right regional resources. Okay, so let's spend a few moments here talking about why customers are coming to AgilePoint and some of the different challenges that they're looking to solve here. Well, first of all, right, in this era of digital transformation, there's simply a need for more software than ever before. Right, businesses are looking to really transform how they operate, right, and as such, need to automate the various processes, both internally facing as well as customer facing. Right, the software that we're using, right, these packaged applications that come off the shelf need to be customized for our unique requirements and the way that we do business. And with many organizations heavily invested in cloud and mobility, right, all of these challenges are now further compounded. Right, and the fact of the matter is that traditional development methods simply can't keep up with the rate at which most organizations need to produce software. So the way that AgilePoint addresses this, and what you'll see during the latter portion of my presentation today, is replacing these custom coding techniques with a declarative or drag and drop toolset with a large library of pre-purposed and easily reusable components. Right, and what this is really enabling us is to address every aspect of the application development process, whether that's how we integrate or model data, design our processes, and deliver responsive user interfaces that work across any device type. As an organizational philosophy, what we're really looking to do is close the gap between business and IT. Right? This has been a challenge for many organizations going back 30 years. Right? And one of the ways that we do that is by empowering each group, right, each development arm within an organization, whether it's IT or the new citizen developers that we're seeing, to each contribute to larger parts of delivering applications. And the end result here being, right, the goal that we're all driving towards is to help accelerate our customers' transition to becoming a digital business. Now, there's many different impacts, right, and transformational benefits that an organization can see when they implement AgilePoint, right, and I'll talk about a few of them today. Right, the first of which, it's something that I alluded to just a moment ago, right, is increasing business partnership with IT. Right, we mentioned that this has been a sore spot for many organizations over the past years, right, because the applications that IT tends to deliver were often behind schedule, right, oftentimes over budget, and in many cases, at the end, didn't well represent the business user's requirements. Many of the customers that we speak with simply don't have enough IT resources because they're focused on the more complex and strategic applications. Right, so what this has meant for many of our customers prior to coming to AgilePoint, right, is the applications that make work easy, right, that elevate the employee and customer experience were, in many cases, left hanging in the wind. And then one of the biggest drivers, and really something that we see pervasively across all of our customers who are undertaking this digital business transformation, is the ability to adapt to changing business needs. Right, and this is something that I'll spend some more time on here in the coming slides. Right, but really the ability to respond to changes in the market, right, competitors, right, and simply to improve how we conduct our business. Now I have a cross-section of a few of our customers on screen here, right, but there's a few insights that I'd like you to take away from this slide. Right, the first of which is an average AgilePoint customer tends to be on the larger side, right, global 2000s and multinationals. But they're getting a tremendous range of value from a single and very versatile AgilePoint platform. Right? 85% of them have used AgilePoint to build some sort of mission-critical application. But in many cases, this can be central to how that organization generates revenue or conducts their business. And 80% of them have deployed AgilePoint as the enterprise-wide standard for application delivery. Right, so if you think about what it takes to become a standard for an organization, right, that really means the ability to address a wide range of use cases, right, ranging in scope and complexity and things of that nature. And lastly, that 65% of our customers came to AgilePoint after having failed with some competitive solution. Now the next slide is really a huge point of pride for us here at AgilePoint. It's one of the largest developments in our history, right? And that is being recognized as a leader in the prestigious Forster Digital Process Automation Wide Report. Now, this is a new report that I think it's in its first year this year. And really, there's a few things that Forrester has to say about this report and its role in an organization's digital business transformation. All right, so we've read the report now and we've extracted some of the main points from our perspective. Right, and it really comes down to three key elements, right? And it's these three elements that are often missing with an organization as they pursue their transformation. Right, and the first, we kind of alluded to this a moment ago, right? To address a digital transformation, we need to be able to build the widest range of use cases, right? A transformation is often not successful if it is selective in its application. Right, our most successful customers, and we have a couple of examples during our case study section, have used AgilePoint to digitize every aspect of their operations, right, both internally as well as facing customers and partners. We need a model that enables us to grow in a sustainable manner. Right, I know that many of you have probably heard of this pay-as-you-grow model that's really pervasive across the industry these days. Right, but AgilePoint takes that one step further. With our unique concurrent user seat pricing, we're really able to pay, enabling our customers to pay for the capacity that they're using at any one time. And when coupling that with AgilePoint's Community Edition, which enables us to start at a free tier, right, for experimentation or perhaps proof of concept, right, and enable you to move to a licensed tier when sufficient value has been established, right? These two in combination here really make for a powerful and a platform that really fits into any budget, right, of any organization. And now discussing the development side, right? So the other side of this is the ability to address a wide range of use cases, right? But from an AgilePoint's perspective, right, our focus is really going beyond fast and easy sort of development, right, to giving our customers the ability to maintain applications at large scale. Right, and in so doing, right, able to really leverage these changes in technology that we're seeing, right, the ability to respond to different business conditions, and the ever-rising customer expectation. So to sort of map that, right, we have three quotes that we found particularly impactful from the Forrester Report. Right, and this first one here really deals with, having components in our platform that really speak to the different development audiences. Right, and this is really what it's all about, right? In order to accelerate the transition to a digital business, we need to grow the talent pool for contributing to the application development process. Now with AgilePoint, right, each development group, both the citizen and professional developer, have an interface in AgilePoint that is best optimized for their skill set and enables each group to build a larger piece of an enterprise application. And of course, all of this is backed with your governance policies, your security, right, and helpful guardrails on the AgilePoint side to help keep everyone on the right track. Now in this combination, right, in the deep tooling, as well as an interface that's optimized for each group, right, has enabled many of our customers to scale applications into hundreds, and in some cases, thousands. Now the next piece that I'd like to talk about today, focuses around the AgilePoint architecture and what it means for an organization. Right, this one really speaks directly to the core of digital transformation, right? Because it's an era of constant change and reinvention, right? AgilePoint is ready to help you easily adapt to those changes. We've had customers that were worried, what happens if Amazon encroaches on more of our market? Right, with AgilePoint, they have the tools to not only defend their market share, right, but to continue to stay ahead, right, by driving internal efficiency and innovation, and to help provide a frictionless experience for both customers, partners, and suppliers. Right, and this also speaks to AgilePoint's ability to easily harness these new and disruptive cloud services and SaaS, right, without large-scale refactoring or rebuilding that will delay the time to value for these new systems. And then lastly here, while cost is certainly an important consideration for any piece of software, right, and it's for this reason that AgilePoint has implemented the pricing model that we have, right, that grows alongside the value you get from our platform. Right, again, starting with the Community Edition, you can build initial value, right, conduct a POC, and then move on to a licensed tier that fits your organization's size and usage patterns. Right, and again, with that unique concurrent model, where you pay for the capacity that you need at any given time. Now, while we're very proud of our positioning in the Forrester Report, right, as I mentioned earlier, right, one of the unique aspects of AgilePoint is the range of value that you can get from the single platform. Right, and I think that's well represented by what you're seeing on screen here, right? In addition to our leader position in the Digital Process Automation Report, we've also been regularly recognized for low-code development, right? That is general purpose application development, as well as handling some of the complex and longer running BPM style workloads, right? And that's really one thing that, AgilePoint is consistently recognized for, is it's this ability to address wide ranges of use cases, right? Ranging in scope, things like complexity, right? And again, all from a single platform. Now, in order to understand the unique value that AgilePoint brings to the table here, it's helpful to quickly understand the state of no-code and low-code tooling in general. Right, on the one hand, we have the no-code market, right, which tends to be very simple, right, often targeted towards true business users, right, but as a result, they're often limited in functionality, right, and tend to target more simple or specific use cases. Right, and what's more, they tend to lack a manageable extensibility layer, right? An ability to personalize the platform for how your organization functions. On the other hand, right, we have the low-code market, which tends to offer lots more control, but tends to be extended with a proprietary scripting language or some fourth-generation programming language, right? Which really limits its appeal to broader audiences. So with that being said, right, AgilePoint is really a unique blend of these two different types of platforms, right? With just taking a quick look at the application development lifecycle as an example, right? Starting off, we need to work out our data model. So whether that's something you want to model internal to AgilePoint with our data entity, or leverage our extensive library of connectors and activities to bring in existing data, and then we can easily use that data as a part of a process, right? Or some sort of form-based application. Whether your process is departmentally focused or something that spans the entirety of the organization, right? AgilePoint provides the tools to reuse and configure to build applications of any complexity. And of course, right, the user interface needs to be responsive, right, responding to device types, orientations, including for offline use. And once I've built these applications, I can easily host them on a custom landing page built on top of AgilePoint. And we'll go through a few examples of that a little bit later on. Now, for the developers in the room, right, there's quite a bit within AgilePoint for you as well, right? In fact, we are consistently recognized for the way we extend the AgilePoint platform. By using our SDK plugin for Visual Studio and a one-time development exercise, you can extend any aspect of the platform, whether it's integration or activities, how we handle human tasks as an example, as well as server-level actions. And again, through this one-time development exercise, we can no-code transform them and empower the citizen developers to use these custom assets, right? Further enabling them to go further in the application development process. And of course, all of this is backed by a secure multi-tenancy, right? Enabling us to deliver personalized experiences for each division within your organization, and backed by a platform that's ready to tackle large-scale throughput. So our goal here is really to help align IT and business, right, and to unlock that innovation potential that's so crucial in this era of digital transformation. Right? And I have a great example of that I'd like to show you right now. So what this often means is when we have these different groups of developers, right, the citizen developers on the one hand, right, who oftentimes know the business process the best, right, and the professional developers in IT, right, this really gives AgilePoint a unique ability to create and maintain these applications at large scale. Now, the example I'd like to share with you here really is quite unheard of in the low-code market as a whole. A Fortune 100 manufacturer has used AgilePoint to create 3,000 applications within 2 years. Right? And it's important not only to note the speed at which they built these applications, but just how drastically they were able to consolidate their application portfolio. Right? These 3,000 apps were used to replace 10,000 applications that were built on a competitive platform and built over a period of 10 years. Right? So really quite compelling stuff when you consider just how quickly and just how drastically they were able to consolidate their application portfolio. Now, the other side of that has to do with the citizen developers, right? And a great example of this comes from a webinar that AgilePoint hosted alongside Salvation Army and Forrester Research about a year ago, right? And it's a great example of what can be done with AgilePoint in the hands of a single citizen developer who had no previous development experience. Within the first year, they were able to roll out 10 applications. Within the second year, that number had doubled to 20, and will again double in 2019, right? And this is really quite amazing when you consider that this sort of productivity is something that you see out of a team of developers, right? Not to mention a single citizen developer with no previous development experience. Now, lastly here, I'd like to show you what can be done with AgilePoint in the hands of a true professional developer. Right, and this story was so compelling, it was actually profiled by Forbes, right? In short, for a large Fortune 50 retailer that you probably are quite familiar with, in a 4-day period, right, a proof of concept was built by a single developer with more functionality than an application developed by an entire team of developers over the period of a year using traditional development methods. So it's a great read. I really highly recommend it. Either myself or Terry will send along this link post the webinar today. Okay, so lastly here, before I transition into pricing and the demo, I just wanted to quickly cover off the different ways that you can consume AgilePoint. Right, given that we work with customers of different sizes and different requirements, right, there are multiple different deployment models, right, and each of them can correlate to your risk and compliance profiles. Right, across each of these deployment types, whether it's on-premises, dedicated cloud, or using AgilePoint SaaS, right, there is a single code base, and what that's meant for many of our customers is If you start on premises as an example, you have an organizational directive to move certain workloads to the cloud, right? AgilePoint will not add any additional complexity for those migrations, right? As you can simply lift and shift your applications from one deployment type to another. And lastly here, before I begin the demo, I just wanted to quickly touch on the pricing options. Right, as I mentioned, there's really a tier that is best suited for each budget, right? And we've yet to find an organization that we couldn't work with from a pricing perspective. Starting out with the free community edition, which enables you again to prove out initial value, maybe build your first proof of concept, right? And then scale out your AgilePoint deployment according to the value that it's bringing to your organization. So this information in full is available on our website, right? I'd encourage you to check it out post the webinar. Okay, so with that being said here, I'm going to transition into my demo environment, and we'll go through a few runtime examples. Now for today's demonstration here, I'm using AgilePoint's SaaS product, right? So this runs on AWS and Azure in different parts of the world. And as you're seeing here, I have a login screen where I can choose how I'd like to authenticate to AgilePoint. Right, this concept of bringing your own identity is really pretty crucial to AgilePoint, right? And it's not uncommon for one of our customers to have multiple different authentication providers integrated into a single AgilePoint deployment. Now, if I had opened my VM and was running AgilePoint on premises, I would also see additional authentication, things like Active Directory or ADFS as an example. But if there's a provider that you need that we don't have, that's something that we can easily bring in to the core platform. Now, with the time that we have today, I don't think we'll get a chance to go through everything within AgilePoint, but I'll hit some of the highlights here. So the first thing that I brought up is the AgilePoint Work Center, right? This is where end users can receive and manage tasks, launch new applications, as well as get quick access to reports. Right? And one of the great things about this interface here, and what really makes it one of my favorites in the platform, is that each user within the organization gets a completely personalized experience. Right, based on the applications that have been opened up to me, the tasks which have been assigned to me, right, and the different ways of doing business, right? This is really one of the unique aspects of AgilePoint, right, is the ability to customize without any sort of code, the interface that you're seeing here. So I'll shift gears a little and go over to the administrator console within AgilePoint, right? Because of course, if we're going to build applications that number in the hundreds or sometimes thousands, as you saw earlier, we need a strong administration and governance portal to manage these applications. So from an administrator's perspective, I get great at-a-glance insight into the details of my application, where the application is currently in its execution, things like activities and tasks, my audit log, as well as a view into the data itself, right? And again, if I have the permission here, I can actually modify some of the values that you're seeing here. Okay, so we have the end user componentry, right? The administrator side of things, right? As we're building applications at scale, we need to be able to monitor them, right? And understand how best we can continuously improve them. All right, so with that being said, a large library of pre-built reports, as well as custom report generation capabilities, right? So I'll go through a few in a second. But just to give you an idea, we give you some on process performance, right? Particularly well-performing or poorly performing processes. And let's just quickly go through some of those custom reports. Now, AgilePoint, from a data perspective, puts everything into SQL Server. Right, so you can report against AgilePoint data, application data, joining additional tables, right? So very straightforward to get deep insight into how your applications and how your people are performing. Let's move along and show an example of a process-based application. This app is also driven from a custom landing page, right? And as you can see here, I've surfaced a number of AgilePoint components. Things like reports, my task list, and the ability to launch new applications. So for this application, it's driven by the attachment of an Excel spreadsheet, right? We wanted to get away from using Excel internally. It doesn't offer much in terms of versioning, right? And they tend to live on people's desktops, so it's hard to know if you have access to high quality data. So to that end, once we attach an Excel document here, AgilePoint extracts all of the values from that document and pre-populates the form on my behalf. Now, optionally, I can attach additional documents, add comments, right? And these comments are helpful not only for subsequent approvers in my process, right, but can also easily be written to a database for reporting purposes. So I'll click Submit here, and in just a moment, I'll receive a task via my inbox. Now, email-based notifications was simply a choice that I made for this application. There's obviously notifications from within AgilePoint itself, SMS-based notifications, and notification through your favorite chat provider, Slack, Microsoft Teams, or Skype for Business as an example. So what I've brought up here on screen is the process viewer. Right, this is really helpful from an end user's perspective to understand where we are in our business process, the steps that are remaining, and the time it might take before the process completes. So I just brought this up here because I wanted to explain a few of the steps in my process here. So after that initial submission step, we have a review step performed by a supervisor. Upon approval, we will assemble a document from the application data that's been captured by AgilePoint. We'll send that document for digital signature via DocuSign. And then we're going to invoke robotic process automation. This is a new integration offered by AgilePoint in Software Update 1 of AgilePoint version 7, and is really helpful to cut down on manual effort or to integrate systems that do not have an API. So let's go back to my email inbox here and open up this task. Now, as a reviewer here, I can maybe change data and certain values if I need to. I can send it back to the prior step in my process, but for demo purposes, let's just click Submit and move the process along. So as you can see here, we're now generating the document, and in just a moment, I will receive a digital signature request via DocuSign. Okay, so that digital signature request should have come in by now. So let's review the document and place my signature. Okay, so now that we've placed the signature here, we have just a few seconds delay built in just to help with the pacing of the demo. But in just another moment, we'll create the report view, which makes this form available for historical record keeping, right? If I need to refer to this particular instance, I can easily see all of the data that's been entered. As you're seeing on screen here, we've now invoked my robotic process automation software robot, and it's taking the application data that we entered, and it's writing it first to a WinForm application. And in just another moment, we'll open up a website and follow the same process. All right, so that concludes this process. The application similarly from a custom landing page, right? And this one actually represents a proof of concept that we built on site for the City of Boston, right? City of Boston asked 17 vendors to come on site, of which AgilePoint was one of them, and put us through a very rigorous build from scratch exercise over a period of a few days. Right? They essentially had asked us to build applications of varying complexity and really looking to understand, the extent of the capabilities for these various platforms. Now, in short, AgilePoint was selected, and it's really for a number of reasons, right? But one of them was the ability to create these sorts of custom pages and really use them to simplify how the employees interacted with AgilePoint. So what we have on screen here is actually a mock-up of boston.gov, right? This is an internally facing page built on top of AgilePoint. But just to highlight the range of capabilities, we modeled the City of Boston's website. right? And each of these tiles here correlate to different applications, right? I have a construction permit, which I'll show in a moment, quick access to my work center, my task list, as well as a whole host of other applications. So where the previous application was a process-based application, what I'm bringing up now is a data-driven or format, right? Not every application requires workflow, right? In fact, roughly 80% of what we've seen, an average customer's app portfolio consists of these sorts of data-driven apps. So we'll give you a sense of the experience here, right? AgilePoint understands who's logged in, right, and pre-populates some data on my behalf. I can input my home address. And then there's a couple of different ways that I can bring up the location where I'd like to pull this construction permit. I can enter it based on coordinates or by address. So what I've done here is I've just typed in the number 67, and using a wildcard search, AgilePoint is going to return all of the matching addresses. Right? And as a result, we've triggered a lookup with Google Maps to drop a pin on that location. So these are great applications that you can quickly and easily build, around an existing data source or from scratch, right? And provide those CRUD operations, right? The ability to create, read, update, and delete against some data source. Now, I think in the interest of time here, I'm going to go to my last demo, which is a Slack bot application. So this is a different look at the traditional process-based application, right? I have all of the same functionality that I would expect from a process-based app, right, with a much more conversational sort of interface. Now, what I'm doing here on screen is I'm onboarding myself for a legal appointment with a law firm. And based on the selections that I'm making, right, things like consultation length, the lawyer that I've selected, AgilePoint is going to send me a bill accordingly via PayPal. Now you'll see here it's asking me for my name, and in just another moment, it will ask for my email address. Right, this is important to point out because I'm using AgilePoint in an unauthenticated mode. Right, in other words, I'm using AgilePoint's anonymous forms capability, which is a great way to bring your partners, your customers into your processes without requiring them to consume an AgilePoint license. Okay, so I'm going to enter my case description here. And then in just another moment, I will have a link sent to me where I can input my credit card details and make a payment via PayPal. All right, so there's my link. I'm just going to copy that and open in a private browser here. Now, if I navigate over to the case details page here, you'll see that all of the information that I gave to the bot was passed over to AgilePoint. And under the Payments tab, right, I can input my credit card details and process my payment. All right, so that concludes the demo portion for today. What I'd like to do now is take some questions. Okay, so first question that I have here is coming from the Salvation Army slide, right? And I can certainly speak to this question. I would really recommend you take a look at the webinar that AgilePoint did alongside Forrester with Salvation Army about a year ago. Right, but the question is, how do you find citizen developers? Well, it's a great question, and it's something that many of our customers initially ask. But what we ultimately find is that for many of our customers, you already sort of have a general idea as to who these users are, right? They might be the slightly technically inclined users that you might view as a power user today, right? So it's fairly straightforward to identify these users. right? What can be occasionally challenging is how do they balance these competing workloads, right? Their existing day-to-day, right? And their new burgeoning role as a potential citizen developer. And so great question, but again, highly recommend you take a look at the AgilePoint webinar with Forster and Salvation Army, because our main contact over there, David Brown, really goes into this in great depth. Next question we have here is regarding external data sources. Yes, so this is really a huge focus of the AgilePoint platform, right? There are more than 70 supported sources off the shelf, right? I'll bring up a full list of all of the integrations here. Just give me one moment. But in short, what we've done is we've provided great, not only breadth of integration, right, but also depth as well, right? And the intent here is to abstract away, a lot of the technical challenges, right, and give drag and drop capabilities for specific actions within a given business system. So just to give you an idea, right, some of the newer ones that we've rolled in recently, things like Microsoft bots, AWS bots, machine learning. But just to go through a list here quickly, things like Dynamics CRM, Dynamics 365, Salesforce and SAP, consumer services, right, like Facebook or LinkedIn and Twitter, document management from Box, Dropbox, etc. Right, and the great thing about this here is not only do you have roughly 700 total actions against these data sources, right, but you can also create your own on a custom basis as well, right? I had mentioned at one point that there is an SDK, right, and through a one-time development activity, we can create new activities, new integrations for different business systems, and then make them such that they are drag and drop and part of the core platform, right? So what we've seen there is, some folks from IT may create a new integration, maybe a new activity as an example, right, which can then be easily reused and configured by someone with a less technical skill set. Right, so great question, thank you. Okay, the next question I have here is with respect to training that's available, right? So there's lots of different training options, and I'll bring up, one of our newer additions over the last year or so, I would say. So what I have here on screen is free sort of self-paced training, right? This came alongside our community edition, which launched a number of months ago, right? And is really meant to help get you started, right? This covers everything from setting up your workspace for the first time, right? All the way through to building your first applications, how to manage your AgilePoint environment, right? As well as things like build reports. All right, so this is a great starting point and really where I point most of my customers initially. Right now, in many cases, there may be a need for more tailored training, right, or deeper training. In which case we do have those options available, right? Those obviously come at a cost, right? But we can definitely tailor that to your specific budget requirements, the skill sets that you're working with, and the depth of training that you'd like, right? But in short, there is obviously a large library of free training available, as well as paid training per your requirements. Okay, and we have one more question here. It has to do with how do we get started with building applications, right? And this is a great question, one that we see with many of our customers, right? And I think one of the things that often colors how our customers approach this question initially, has to do with how they've come to find AgilePoint. Right, we mentioned a little earlier that roughly 65% of customers come to AgilePoint after having failed with a competitive solution, right? So they're often inclined to try and tackle their largest and most complex applications first, right? Now this is obviously something we don't mind the challenge, right? But what ends up happening is you end up having a delayed time to value, right, for some of these larger apps, right? Simply because they're larger in scope, they're more complex, right? So what we'd rather see, is starting small, right? Finding some applications that are maybe on the simpler side, right? But but are highly visible or have a large impact, right? Build on those smaller successes, right? Market your success across the different areas of the organization, right? With the intent to then go viral, right? We find that to be a much more sustainable approach, but great question, thank you. I have a question of how do you access the training page? So we'll send along the URL, but essentially it's https training.agilepoint.com. Yep. And let us know if you have any feedback, if there's anything you'd like to see added into the content over the coming months. As you can see on the page, there's feedback links directly on the page itself. Okay, next question we have is how do we handle upgrades to the software from all of the various platforms available? If I'm understanding your question, AgilePoint is really geared towards having day one support for any new software platform, right? You can take a look at our system requirements page, but we're supportive of all of the recent Windows Server and SQL Server developments, right? From an integration perspective, right, this is another big focus for us, right, is not only having day one support for newer technologies, right, but also maintaining that backwards compatibility for previous versions of any given business system. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, I'm going to keep the line open here for another couple of moments if there's any other questions, but if not, thank you so much everyone for joining me today. We'll be making the slides and the recording available a little bit later on today. Thank you so much.